Ife Obiora smoothed down her pencil skirt as she waited for the elevator in the sleek glass tower of Marco Industries. The building stood tall in Seoul's Gangnam district, all chrome and marble, a monument to power and money. She'd been working here for 6 months now, and still every day felt like walking on ice. Her reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls showed a young woman who looked far more confident than she felt. Dark skin that still drew stares in the homogeneous crowds of Seoul. Hair pulled back in a neat bun. Simple pearl earrings her mother had given her before she left Lagos. She looked professional, composed. No one could see the butterflies that never quite left her stomach. The 23rd floor was quiet at this hour. Most of the staff had gone home by 8. By 9, even the ambitious junior executives had called it a night. Now, at 9:45 p.m., Ife was alone with the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sounds of the cleaning crew several floors below. She gathered the quarterly reports from her desk, checking them 3 times. Everything had to be perfect when it came to Don Marco. That's what everyone called him, though never to his face. To his face it was Mr. Kim or Sir, or if you were brave and familiar, Marco-san. But behind closed doors, in whispered conversations in the break room, he was Don Marco, a boss, the man who controlled half of Seoul's underground and all of its surface that mattered. Ife had known what she was getting into when she took the job, or at least she thought she had. She'd needed work desperately. Her student visa was running out, her savings were nearly gone, and the other Korean companies had politely rejected her application after application. "We're looking for someone who fits our company culture," they'd say, which she'd learned was code for, "We want someone who looks Korean." Then Marco Industries had called. The salary was 3 times what anywhere else offered. The benefits were incredible. The office was beautiful. And when she'd met Mr. Kim during her interview, she'd understood why the position paid so well. He was dangerous. Not in an obvious way. He was polite during the interview, professional even. Asked her about her experience, her education, her language skills. She spoke English, obviously, and had learned Korean at university in Lagos, though her accent was still thick. He'd smiled at that. "Your Korean is better than my English," he'd said, switching between the 2 languages effortlessly. "You'll fit in here." But there was something in his eyes. Something dark and hungry that made her want to run and stay at the same time. He'd looked at her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve, a book he wanted to read cover to cover. She'd taken the job anyway. She needed it. And besides, he was her boss. Whatever she'd seen in that interview room, whatever charge had passed between them when their hands touched as he handed her the employment contract, it was all in her head. Professional distance. That was the key. For 6 months, she'd maintained that distance. She arrived early, left late, did her work perfectly. She brought him his coffee the way he liked it. Black, no sugar, in the blue ceramic mug he preferred. She scheduled his meetings, managed his calls, organized his files. She was the perfect executive assistant. And she tried very hard not to notice the way he watched her. It was subtle at first. She'd catch him staring when she entered his office, his dark eyes following her movement as she crossed the room to place documents on his desk. Sometimes when she was speaking, explaining a schedule change or a client concern, she'd see his gaze drop to her lips, stay there for a heartbeat too long, before snapping back up to her eyes. He never said anything inappropriate. Never touched her beyond the professional. A handshake, a brief touch on her shoulder to get her attention. But the air between them crackled with something unnamed. Something that made her heart race when she heard his office door open, when she heard his footsteps approaching her desk. Her co-workers had noticed. "He likes you," her desk neighbor Ji-won had whispered one day during lunch. "I've worked here for 3 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." "He doesn't look at me anyway," Ife had protested, stabbing at her bibimbap. "He's just intense. With everyone." Ji-won had laughed. "Sure. Keep telling yourself that." But Ife had to tell herself that. Because the alternative, that her powerful, dangerous, impossibly handsome boss was interested in her, was too complicated to consider. She was here on borrowed time, a foreign worker in a country that barely tolerated her presence. She couldn't afford complications. She couldn't afford to lose this job. So she kept her head down, did her work, and pretended not to feel his eyes on her. Tonight was different though. Tonight he'd asked her to stay late. Specifically her, not any of the other assistants. "I need the quarterly reports," he'd said that afternoon, standing at her desk, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody. "Bring them to my private office at 10. Not before." His private office. Not the main one where he took meetings and worked during the day. The private one at the end of the hall. The one with the heavy oak door that was always locked. The one she'd never been inside. She glanced at the clock on her computer. 9:47 p.m. 13 minutes. She used the time to check the reports again, making sure every page was perfect, every number accurate, every chart clearly labeled. The work was impeccable, she'd made sure of that. Mr. Kim demanded perfection, and she refused to give him anything less. At 9:55 she stood, smoothing her skirt again, a nervous habit she couldn't break. The reports were in a leather folder, professional and neat. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked toward the hallway that led to his private office. The hallway was long, lined with expensive art, pieces she recognized from her art history classes at university. Small Picasso sketch. A Korean landscape that was probably priceless. Every piece illuminated by subtle track lighting that made the marble floors gleam. Her heels clicked on the marble, each step echoing in the empty silence. Blick, 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 like a countdown. When she reached his door she paused. Her hand was trembling slightly as she raised it to knock. She didn't know why she was so nervous. This was just work. Just reports. She heard something. Sound from inside the office. Not voices. Not the rustle of papers or the click of a keyboard. Something else. Something that made her freeze with her knuckles an inch from the wood. The door was cracked open. Just slightly. Maybe an inch. Enough to let a sliver of golden light spill into the hallway. Enough to let sound escape. She should knock. That's what she was here for. Knock, enter when called, deliver the reports, leave. Simple. Professional. But something stopped her. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the way her heart had started pounding, the way her mouth had gone dry. She should knock. Instead she leaned forward just slightly and peered through the crack in the door. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat, made the folder slip from her suddenly nerveless fingers, made the world tilt on its axis. The reports scattered across the marble floor with a sound like thunder. The moment seemed to freeze, crystallize into something that would replay in Ife's mind for weeks, months, maybe forever. Through the crack in the door she could see him, Mr. Kim, Marco, Don Marco, whatever name fit a man who looked like that in this moment. He was leaning back in his leather chair, the one that probably cost more than she made in a year. His suit jacket was draped over the back of a second chair. His white dress shirt was open, buttons undone halfway down his chest, revealing smooth skin and the edge of a tattoo she'd never known was there. His head was tilted back, dark hair falling away from his face. His eyes were closed, lips parted, and the expression on his face was one of pure, unguarded pleasure. One hand gripped the armrest of his chair. Other. Ife's brain stuttered, tried to process what she was seeing, tried to reconcile the composed, controlled man she worked for with this version. Raw, vulnerable, lost in sensation. But it wasn't just that. It wasn't just walking in on a private moment, shocking and inappropriate as that was. It was what was on his desk. Photographs, dozens of them, spread across the polished wood surface like a deck of cards. And every single one was of her. Ife's stomach dropped. Her vision went blurry at the edges. She gripped the doorframe to keep from swaying. There she was, sitting at her desk, concentrating on her computer screen. The photo must have been taken from the doorway of the conference room across the hall. Her brow was furrowed, lips pressed together the way they got when she was working through a complex problem. Another photo. Her in the break room, laughing at something Ji-won had said. Her head was thrown back, smile wide and genuine. She remembered that moment. Ji-won had told a story about her cat getting stuck in a shopping bag. Had been 3 weeks ago, maybe 4. Another. Her walking to her car in the parking garage. She was fishing for her keys in her purse, unaware of the camera. This one was taken from above, from one of the upper levels of the garage. She could see the top of her head, the vulnerable curve of her neck. More and more. Her getting coffee from the shop across the street. Her waiting for the elevator. Her standing at the window of the office, looking out at the Seoul skyline during her lunch break. Candid shots, all of them. Secret shots. Photos taken without her knowledge, without her consent. He'd been watching her, photographing her, obsessing over her. And now, in this moment, surrounded by images of her, he was. The folder hit the floor with a crash that seemed impossibly loud in the silent hallway. His eyes snapped open. For one eternal second, they stared at each other through the crack in the door. His dark eyes wide with shock. Her brown ones wide with... what? Horror. Confusion. Something else she couldn't name. He should run. Every instinct screamed at her to turn and flee, to grab her purse and coat and never come back, to book a flight to Lagos tonight and forget this job, this building, this man existed. But she couldn't move. Her feet were rooted to the marble floor. Her heart hammered so hard she could hear it, feel it, a wild drum in her chest. He moved first. Slowly, deliberately he stood. He didn't adjust his clothing, didn't try to hide what he'd been doing, didn't rush to gather the photographs. He just stood, eyes locked on hers, and the expression on his face was impossible to read. "Come inside, Ife." His voice was rough, deeper than usual, but the command in it was unmistakable. Close the door. She should say no. Should turn and run. Should do anything but obey. Her hand pushed the door open. Her feet carried her forward. The door clicked shut behind her with a sound like a cell door closing. The office was warm, the air heavy with tension. Everything was leather and wood and expensive taste. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Seoul skyline, a bar cart in the corner with crystal decanters, a leather sofa that probably cost more than her yearly salary. But all she could see were the photographs. Now that she was closer, she could see even more of them. They weren't just on his desk. Some were pinned to a corkboard on the wall behind his desk, arranged in what looked like chronological order. A timeline of her life for the past 6 months. The earliest ones were from her first week. She looked nervous in them, uncertain, like a deer ready to bolt. Then ones from a month in, where she looked more comfortable, more confident. Recent ones where she was smiling more, laughing with coworkers, walking with her head held high. He documented her transformation, captured her evolution from scared newcomer to competent professional, watched her bloom without her knowledge. "How long have you been?" She couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't find the words for what he'd been doing. "Standing there?" he asked, voice still rough. "Or taking the photos?" She couldn't speak. Just stared at him, at the photos, at the evidence of his obsession spread out before her like a confession. He ran a hand through his hair, and the gesture was so human, so vulnerable, that it almost made him seem normal. Almost made this situation seem like something that could be explained away. 6 months, he said finally, answering a question she hadn't fully asked. "Since the day you walked into this building for your interview." Her knees felt weak. She wanted to sit, but the only chair available was the one he'd just been in, and she wouldn't sit there. Not after what she'd seen. "Why?" The word came out as a whisper. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "You really don't know. You're my boss," she said, and her voice was stronger now, anger starting to burn through the shock. This is illegal. This is stalking. This is wrong," he finished for her. "I know. Trust me, I know." He moved around the desk, and she flinched back instinctively. He noticed, stopped, held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm not going to hurt you, Ife." I would never hurt you. But you'd photograph me without my consent. Follow me. Watch me. The anger was building now, hot and bright. That's not hurting me. I needed. He trailed off, shook his head. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. She crossed her arms over her chest, a defensive gesture. Explain to me why my boss has been stalking me for 6 months. Explain to me why you have dozens of photographs of me hidden away in your private office. Explain to me what the hell I just walked in on. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. She saw the exact moment he decided to tell her the truth. You won't even look at me, he said finally, and there was something raw in his voice. For 6 months you've worked here, and you won't look at me. Not really. You're professional, polite, perfect. But you never. You keep this distance. This wall. And it's driving me insane. Fee's breath caught. Of course I keep distance. You're my employer. It's inappropriate to. He laughed, and the sound was dark, bitter. Inappropriate. Fee, I run an empire built on violence and corruption. I make decisions every day that cost people their lives, their freedom, their futures. And you? He gestured at her, frustrated. You talk to me about inappropriate. That doesn't excuse. I know. His voice rose, then fell again, controlled. I know it doesn't excuse this. I know this is wrong. I know I'm wrong. But you're the only clean thing in my world. The only pure thing. And I couldn't stop myself from wanting some piece of you, even if it was just this. He gestured at the photographs, and there was shame in his face now, real shame. Fee's mind was reeling. This was crazy. This whole situation was insane. She should leave. She should report him. I should. When you smile, he continued, voice softer now. When you smile at G1 or at the receptionist or at your coffee, I feel jealous. Jealous of a cup of coffee. Do you know how pathetic that is? How weak it makes me. He moved closer, and this time she didn't flinch back. Couldn't. Was trapped by his words, by the confession pouring out of him. I told myself I'd keep my distance. You were off limits. You needed this job, needed stability, and I wouldn't be the one to ruin that for you. But then you'd walk into my office with your reports, smelling like cocoa butter and something floral, and I'd forget every promise I made to myself. So you took photographs, she said, and she hated how her voice wavered. You spied on me. I needed something, he said simply. Some piece of you that was mine. Even if you'd never know about it. Even if it was wrong. Ife stepped closer to the desk, looking at the photos more carefully now. They were good photographs, she realized. Not grainy or rushed. Carefully composed, perfectly lit. He'd taken time with them. This one, she pointed to the photo of her laughing in the break room. This was a month ago. 5 weeks, he corrected. You were happy that day. Happier than usual. I wanted to know why. Wanted to be the reason for that smile. She picked up another photo. Her at the window, silhouetted against the Seoul skyline. When did you take this? 2 weeks ago. Tuesday. You stayed late working on the investor presentation. I came back to the office around 8 and you were there, just standing at the window. You looked like you were thinking about something sad. My mother called, Ife said softly, surprising herself. She wanted me to come home. Said Seoul was too far, too different. She missed me. Do you miss her? Every day. She looked up at him, and for the first time since entering the room, really met his eyes. But I can't go back. Not yet. Not until I've made something of myself here. You have, he said. You're the best assistant I've ever had. You're brilliant, organized, intuitive. You anticipate what I need before I know I need it. Is that why you hired me? Because you thought I'd be good at the job? He had the grace to look away. No. I hired you because the moment you walked into my interview room I couldn't breathe. I hired you because I knew if I didn't, I'd spend the rest of my life wondering what it would have been like to hear your voice every day, to see your face, to exist in the same space as you. The confession hung in the air between them, heavy and dangerous. "That's insane," Ife whispered. "I know. You can't just. People don't. That's not how the world works. It's how my world works." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. "In my world, when I want something, I take it. But with you, couldn't. You weren't something to be taken. So I settled for this." He gestured at the photos. "For shadows of you. For stolen moments." Ife's hands were shaking. She set the photo down before she dropped it. "This is still wrong. You have to see that this is wrong." "I do see it. I'm not delusional, Ife. I know this is stalking. I know this is a violation. I know if anyone found out, I'd lose everything. The company, my reputation, probably my freedom. And you should quit. You should walk out of here tonight and never come back." "Then why tell me this? Why confess?" His smile was sad. "Because you saw. And I'm tired of lying. Tired of pretending I don't feel this. Tired of taking photographs when what I want is the real thing." The real thing. The words echoed in her mind. She thought about the past 6 months. The way her heart raced when she heard his voice. The way she spent too long choosing her outfits in the morning, telling herself it was just professionalism, not hoping he'd notice. The way she'd catch herself staring at his hands during meetings, wondering what they'd feel like on her skin. The way she'd been lying to herself as much as he'd been lying to her. "I felt it too," she admitted, and the words felt like jumping off a cliff. "The tension. Pull. Every time you'd stand close to me, every time our hands would touch passing documents, I'd feel it. And I told myself I was imagining it. That you were just my boss and I was being ridiculous." His eyes darkened. "You're not imagining anything. But this," she gestured at the photos again. "This is too much. This is over the line. I know. You can't just watch me, photograph me, obsess over me, and think that's okay. I don't think it's okay. I think I'm losing my mind." He ran his hand through his hair again, frustrated. "You want me to apologize? Can't. I'm not sorry for wanting you. I'm only sorry you found out this way." The honesty was brutal, refreshing, terrifying. "What happens now?" Fee asked. Marco looked at her for a long moment, and she saw the war in his eyes. Control versus desire. Power versus vulnerability. "That depends," he said finally, "on whether you walk out that door or not." The question hung in the air between them like smoke, thick and suffocating. Walk out that door or not? Stay or go? Accept this insanity or return to the safe, normal world where bosses didn't photograph their employees, didn't confess their obsessions, didn't look at her like Marco was looking at her now. Ife's mind raced through her options. She could leave. Should leave. Pack up her desk tomorrow, send a resignation email, never set foot in this building again. Find another job. It would be harder but not impossible. She was good at what she did. Someone else would hire her eventually. But even as she thought it, she knew she wouldn't. Couldn't. 'Cause he was right. She'd felt it too. For 6 months, she'd been dancing around this thing between them, pretending it didn't exist, building walls that were ultimately useless because they couldn't keep out what was already inside her. "If I stay," she said carefully, "things can't continue like this." Something flashed in his eyes. "Hope maybe." "No. They can't. No more photographs without my knowledge." "Agreed. No more watching me without my consent." "Ife. I mean it." She straightened her spine, found strength she didn't know she had. "You want me. Fine. But not as an obsession. Not as something to be studied from a distance. If this is going to happen, whatever this is, I need to be a person to you. Ois. Not a fantasy." He stared at her, and she watched him process what she was saying. What she was offering. The photographs had been safe. A one-sided obsession he could control, could keep at a distance. What she was suggesting was far more dangerous. Real. Mutual. Terrifying. "You're asking me to give up control," he said slowly. "I'm asking you to see me as an equal, Even if I'm not. Even if you're my boss and you have all the power here. She gestured around the office, at the trappings of his wealth and influence. In this room right now, I need to have power too. A slow smile spread across his face. You've always had power. You just didn't know it. Then prove it. Burn the photographs. He blinked, clearly not expecting that. What? All of them. The ones on your desk, the ones on the wall, any others you have hidden away. If you want me, the real me, not the version you've built in your head, then you need to let go of the fantasy. For a moment she thought he might refuse. Saw the possessive flicker in his eyes, the reluctance to destroy something he'd spent months creating. These photos were his, she realized. His secret treasure, his private collection. Asking him to burn them was asking him to trust her with something bigger. To trust that she wouldn't disappear. All of them, he asked quietly. All of them. He moved to the desk, gathered the photographs with careful hands. She watched him, saw the way he lingered over each one, the way his fingers traced her face in a shot where she was smiling. He was saying goodbye, she realized. Letting go of the safe distance these pictures had provided. When he had them all collected, he moved to the corkboard, unpinning the chronological timeline he'd created. 6 months of her life, catalogued and preserved. He added them to the stack. There's more, he admitted. In my desk drawer. On my computer. Show me. He opened the bottom drawer of his desk, pulled out a leather-bound album. It was full of more photographs, these ones printed on expensive paper, carefully arranged. He'd made a photo album of her like she was someone he was dating, someone he had the right to document. The possessiveness of it should have scared her. Maybe it did. But there was something else too, something that felt like being seen. Really, truly seen. He'd captured versions of her she didn't know existed. Her at her most genuine, most unguarded, most herself. Computer too, she reminded him. He pulled up his laptop, opened a folder. Hundreds of photos. Thousands maybe. Organized by date, by location, by what she was wearing. It was meticulous. Obsessive. Insane. Delete them, she said. His hand hovered over the keyboard. You're sure? I'm sure. He held her gaze for a long moment, then pressed delete. Select all. Delete. Are you sure? The folder emptied. Then he dragged it to the trash. Emptied the trash. The photos vanished into digital nothingness. The album too, Ife said, pointing to the leather-bound book. He added it to the stack of loose photographs. The pile was substantial now, a monument to his obsession. There's a fire pit on my balcony, he said. For when I need to dispose of sensitive documents. Of course he had a fire pit in his office for burning documents. This was the kind of man he was. The kind of world he lived in. Then let's burn them. He led her through a door she hadn't noticed before. Hidden in the wood paneling. It opened onto a small balcony. The Seoul skyline spread out before them like a blanket of lights. The air was cold, winter making its presence known, but there was a fire pit in the center of the space, sleek and modern. Marco set the stack of photographs beside the fire pit, then produced a lighter from his pocket. With practiced ease, he lit a fire, fed it with papers from a small box nearby. Other documents he'd needed to destroy, she assumed. When the flames were strong, he picked up the first photograph, her laughing in the break room. He looked at it one last time, then placed it in the fire. It curled immediately, edges blackening, her image distorting and disappearing. Your turn, he said, handing her a photograph. She looked at it. Her by the window, thinking of her mother. She remembered feeling sad that day, feeling disconnected from home. In the photo, that sadness was captured perfectly. The slump of her shoulders, the distant look in her eyes. She dropped it into the flames. They burned them together, one by one. Some he burned, some she burned. Took a long time. The leather album was last, and it took longer to burn, the binding resistant to the flames. But eventually, it too surrendered, and 6 months of documentation became ash. When it was done, they stood in silence, watching the last embers die. Ife's hands were cold, her face warm from the fire. Marco stood beside her, close enough that their arms almost touched. "There's something you need to understand," he said, still staring at the ashes. "My life isn't normal. The work I do, the people I deal with, it's dangerous. If people knew about you, if they knew you mattered to me, they'd use you to get to me." "I know what you do," Ife said. "Everyone knows. They call you Don Marco. They whisper about the deals you make, the people who disappear when they cross you. And that doesn't scare you." She thought about it honestly. It should. But it doesn't. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm stupid. But I've seen you, Marco. I've seen how you are with your employees, how you protect them. Ji-won told me about when her ex-boyfriend was harassing her, showing up at work. "You made him disappear, not literally," she added quickly at his expression. "But he never came back. You protected her. That's different." "How?" "She was an employee. You're—" He trailed off, searching for the word. "What am I?" Ife asked, turning to face him fully. He turned too, and the firelight cast shadows across his face, made him look both younger and older at the same time. Vulnerable and dangerous. Human and something more. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But I want to find out." "Then we need rules," Ife said, because one of them had to be practical. "Boundaries. Tell me." "At work, nothing changes. I'm still your assistant. You're still my boss. Professional distance." He nodded slowly. "Agreed. No one can know. For my safety, like you said, but also for my reputation. If people think I slept my way into this job, they won't think that. You're too good at what you do. They'll think it anyway. Women always get blamed." He frowned but didn't argue. "So this stays between us. Secret." "Secret," she confirmed. "And Marco, you have to tell me things. About your work, about the dangers. I can't protect myself if I don't know what I'm protecting myself from." 55. "That's fair." He stepped closer and she let him. "Anything else?" "Yes." She looked up at him, met his dark eyes directly. "You have to promise me that if this gets too dangerous, if keeping me in your life puts me in real danger, you'll let me go. You'll help me disappear, start over somewhere safe." His jaw clenched. "No. Marco. I won't promise that. I won't promise to let you go. You have to." "No." He grabbed her shoulders, not hard, but firm enough to make his point. "I'll promise to protect you. I'll promise to keep you safe. I'll burn down the whole city if I have to. But I won't promise to let you go. Don't ask me for that." The intensity in his voice, in his eyes, should have scared her. Instead, it made something in her chest flutter, warm and dangerous. "That's not healthy," she whispered. "I know." He pulled her closer until they were almost touching. "I'm not healthy when it comes to you. I'm obsessed, possessive, probably unhinged. And burning those photos didn't change that. It just changed how I show it. You're supposed to be convincing me this is a good idea," Ife said, but she didn't pull away. "Is that what you need? Convincing?" His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me you haven't been lying to yourself about what you want." She couldn't tell him that. Wouldn't lie. "I felt it," she admitted again. "Every time you walked past my desk. Every time you said my name. Every time you smiled at something I did. I told myself it was professional admiration. That I respected you as a boss. But I was lying. What was it really?" "Want," she whispered. "Need. Something I didn't have a name for." His thumb traced her lower lip, and her breath hitched. "And now that you know what I am, what I've done. Now that you know how twisted my feelings are. I should run," she said honestly. "This is crazy. You're my boss. You stalked me. You have an empire built on violence. This is every red flag that exists. But But I'm not running. She leaned into his touch, let herself feel it fully. I'm choosing to stay. Try this. Whatever this is. You'll regret it, he warned. I'm not an easy man to love. Who said anything about love? She tried to keep her voice light, teasing. Maybe I just want to see what happens when we stop pretending. He smiled, and it transformed his face. Made him look less like a crime lord and more like a man who just won something precious. So we stop pretending. We stop pretending, she agreed. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away. He didn't. His lips brushed hers, soft and questioning. She answered by pressing closer, by opening to him, by letting 6 months of tension finally break. The kiss was everything she'd imagined and nothing like it. Soft and hard, gentle and demanding. He tasted like whiskey and something darker, something that was just him. His hands tangled in her hair, careful of the pins holding it up. She gripped his shirt, the fabric still hanging open from earlier, and felt the heat of his skin through it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. This is going to be complicated. I know. Dangerous. I know. Probably a disaster. I know. She smiled up at him. But I'm choosing it anyway. He kissed her again, harder this time, and she felt the leashed power in him, the control he was exercising. This man could destroy her in so many ways. But she was choosing to trust that he wouldn't. That he'd keep her safe even as he brought her into his dangerous world. When they finally went back inside, the photos were ashes on the wind, and everything had changed. He walked her to the door of his office, their professional distance already hard to maintain after what had happened on the balcony. Monday morning, he said, adjusting his shirt, buttoning it back up, becoming the professional boss again. We'll be careful. Smart. Monday morning, she agreed. And Marco? He paused, hand on the door. Yes. No more secrets. If you want something, you ask me. Directly. No more watching from a distance. He smiled, and there was promise in it. Oh, I'll be asking. And Ife. When I ask, I expect an answer. You'll get one, she said. But it might not always be the one you want. That's what makes it interesting. He opened the door for her, ever the gentleman despite everything. Get home safe. Text me when you arrive. You don't have my personal number. He rattled it off perfectly. Course he knew it. Probably had it memorized the day she filled out her employment paperwork. She should be annoyed. Instead she laughed. Of course you do. I'll delete those photos, he said. But my memory. That's mine to keep. She shook her head, but she was smiling as she walked away, as she heard his door close behind her, as she gathered her coat and purse from her desk and headed for the elevator. In the elevator's mirrored walls, she looked different. Flushed, alive, like someone who just jumped off a cliff and discovered she could fly. Or was falling and didn't care about the landing. The weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and anticipation. Ife spent Saturday cleaning her small apartment in Itaewon, the international district where she'd found affordable housing. She scrubbed the kitchen until it gleamed, organized her closet 3 times, did laundry she didn't need to do. Anything to keep her hands busy and her mind from replaying Friday night over and over. But at night, alone in her bed, she couldn't stop thinking about it. About him. About the photographs burning, about his confession, about the way his lips had felt on hers. She'd kissed her boss. Her dangerous, obsessive, criminal boss. And she wanted to do it again. Sunday her mother called. Ife, my darling, how are you? I'm good, Mama. Work is good. Just good. You sound different. Did something happen? Her mother's intuition was legendary. Ife had never been able to hide anything from her, not even across thousands of miles. Nothing bad. Just thinking about things. What things? The future. What I want. You want to come home, her mother said immediately. I knew it. You're ready to leave Seoul, come back to Lagos. We can find you a good job here. Maybe with Uncle Emika's company. No, Mama. That's not what I mean. Ife sat on her small balcony, looking out at the Seoul skyline. Somewhere out there, in that forest of lights, was Marco's building. Was he thinking about her too? I'm happy here. I'm building something. Building what? A life alone in a foreign country. A life that's mine. On my terms. Her mother was quiet for a moment. You met someone. It wasn't a question. Fi's heart skipped. What makes you say that? A mother knows. The way you're talking, careful but excited. Nervous but happy. Is he Korean? He is. Does he treat you well? Ife thought about the photographs, about the obsession. By any normal standard, no, he didn't treat her well. He'd stalked her, photographed her without consent, crossed every professional boundary that existed. But he'd also been honest. Vulnerable. And when she'd demanded he burn the photos, he'd done it. When she'd set boundaries, he'd agreed. He'd given her power when he could have used his position to take what he wanted. He sees me, Ife said finally. Really sees me. Not just the professional version I show at work. The real me. And you see him too. Yes. Then I pray for you, my daughter. Pray that this man is worthy of you. That he knows what a treasure he has. They talked for a while longer about Lagos news and family gossip. When they hung up, Ife felt lighter. Her mother didn't know the full truth, couldn't know, but she'd given her blessing in her own way. Monday morning arrived too quickly and not quickly enough. Ife spent an hour choosing her outfit. Not the professional armor she usually wore, but not too different either. She settled on a navy dress that was work-appropriate but fit her a little better than usual. Modest but flattering. She left her hair down instead of in its usual bun, dark curls framing her face. In the mirror she looked like herself but also like someone new. Someone bolder. The commute to the office felt longer than usual. Her heart raced as the subway carried her closer to Marco Industries. What would it be like seeing him again? Would things be awkward? Would he regret what happened? Would she? The building looked the same as always. Impressive, intimidating, expensive. But now she knew secrets it held. Knew about the private office, the balcony, the fire pit where evidence could be destroyed. The elevator ride to the 23rd floor felt eternal. When the doors opened, she stepped into the familiar office space. A few early arrivals were already at their desks. Ji-won waved from across the room, and Ife waved back, trying to act normal. Her desk was neat, exactly as she'd left it Friday night. Before everything changed, Marco's main office door was closed. She didn't know if he was in yet or not. Usually she'd know. Would have gotten his schedule email at 6 a.m., would have his coffee order ready, would have the morning briefing documents prepared. Her computer chimed. An email. From Marco. Timestamp 6 a.m. exactly. Miss Obiora. Please bring the quarterly reports to my office at 9 a.m. We need to review them for this afternoon's board meeting. Kim. Formal. Professional. As if Friday night had never happened. Ife exhaled slowly. This was the agreement. Professional distance at work. She could do this. The quarterly reports were still in her desk drawer, pristine and unscattered. She'd had to reprint them Friday night after leaving them scattered on the floor. At 8:55, she gathered them, checked her appearance in her compact mirror, and walked to his office. She knocked. 3 sharp raps. Come in. His voice sent a shiver through her. She opened the door, stepped inside. Marco sat behind his desk, perfectly dressed in a charcoal suit, hair styled, every inch the powerful executive. He looked up from his computer, and for just a moment, something flashed in his eyes. Heat, recognition, want, before the professional mask slid back into place. Miss Obiora. Thank you for being prompt. Of course, Mr. Kim. She placed the reports on his desk, careful not to touch him. I flagged the sections that might require additional explanation for the board. He opened the folder, scanned the first page. Efficient as always. They went through the reports together. His questions pointed and relevant, her answers clear and concise. To anyone watching, they were just a boss and his assistant doing their jobs. No one would guess that 48 hours ago, they'd been kissing on a balcony, burning photographs, confessing obsessions. But Ife felt it. The tension simmering under the surface. The way his eyes lingered on her for half a second too long. The way her breath caught when he leaned close to point at a chart. The electricity in the air between them. "That will be all," he said finally, closing the folder. "Please have these copied and distributed to the board members before the meeting." "Yes, sir." She gathered the reports, turned to leave. "Miss Obiora." She paused at the door, looked back. His expression was neutral, but his eyes burned. "I like your hair down. It suits you." Heat flooded through her. "Thank you, Mr. Kim." In the safety of her desk, she let out a shaky breath. Ji-won rolled her chair over immediately. "Oh my God, what happened? What do you mean? You're all flushed. And is that a hickey on your neck?" Ife's hand flew to her neck. There was no hickey, they hadn't gone that far. But Ji-won's eyes were sharp. "Nothing happened. I just had a busy weekend." And that's why you wore your hair down. And that dress. Girl, you look like you're going on a date, not working. It's still professional," Ife protested. "Professionally hot," Ji-won agreed. "Who's the lucky guy?" "There's no guy. Liar. You're glowing. You met someone." Ji-won gasped dramatically. "Is it someone from the office?" "Oh my God, is it someone from the office?" "No," Faye said too quickly. "I mean no. There's no one. I just decided to try a different style today." Ji-won looked skeptical but let it drop. "Fine. Keep your secrets. But I'm just saying whoever he is, he's making you happy. It's nice to see." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of work. Ife made copies of the reports, distributed them to board members' offices, confirmed attendance for the afternoon meeting. Normal Monday tasks. But every time she passed Marco's office, every time she heard his voice on a phone call, every time someone mentioned his name, her heart would skip. At lunch, she escaped to the coffee shop across the street, needing distance and perspective. She ordered her usual, a caramel latte and a sandwich, and found a corner table where she could think. This was insane. Absolutely insane. She was playing with fire, getting involved with Marco. He was dangerous, powerful, her boss. Everything about this situation was wrong. But God help her, she didn't want to stop. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, though she knew exactly who it was. "Are you at the coffee shop across the street?" She looked around instinctively, but she didn't see him anywhere. He was probably watching from his office window. Watching her like he'd been watching for months. She should be creeped out. Instead she felt seen. Cared for. Protected in a twisted way. She texted back, "Yes. Why?" The response came quickly. "Because I wanted to join you but I can't. Too many eyes. Too many people who would notice. Is this our life now? Watching each other from a distance. Only during the day. Nights can be different. If you want them to be." Her heart raced. "How different? Have dinner with me. Tonight. Not as your boss. As Marco." She hesitated. This was moving fast. Too fast maybe. She should slow down, think things through, be rational. But when had she ever been rational about him? "Where?" "My place. I'll cook. 7 p.m. I'll send a car. You cook. I'm full of surprises." "Yes." She looked at the message for a long moment. This was a line, once crossed, that would be hard to uncross. Going to his home, being alone with him, no professional buffer between them. It was dangerous, reckless, perfect. "I'll count the hours." Ife stared at her phone, at the conversation that could ruin her if anyone saw it. She should delete it, should be more careful. But instead she saved his number under a fake name, Pizza Place, and finished her lunch with a smile she couldn't suppress. The afternoon board meeting was torture. Ife sat outside the conference room, taking notes on her laptop, managing logistics. Through the glass walls, She could see Marco at the head of the table, commanding the room with effortless authority. He was in his element here, powerful, confident, in control. But twice, she caught him looking at her through the glass. Brief glances that no one else would notice. But she noticed, felt them like a physical touch. At 5 p.m. the meeting ended. Board members filed out, chatting among themselves. Marco was last, stopping by her desk to hand her his notes. "Please type these up and email them to me by tonight." "Of course, Mr. Kim." His fingers brushed hers as he handed her the notebook. Just for a second. Just enough to make her breath catch. "Have a good evening, Miss Obiora." "You too, sir." She watched him walk to the elevators, watched the doors close behind him. Then she looked at the notebook in her hands and opened it. The notes were there, professional and thorough. But on the last page, written in his precise handwriting, were something comfortable. "And Ife, don't be nervous. Just dinner. Just us. No expectations. No pressure. Just two people getting to know each other." Below that, an address in Gangnam, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in Seoul. Ife's hands trembled as she closed the notebook. Just dinner. Just getting to know each other. Who was she kidding? There was nothing just about any of this. At 6:30 p.m., Ife stood in front of her closet, wearing only a towel, staring at her limited wardrobe with something close to panic. "Wear something comfortable," he'd said. But what did that mean? Jeans seemed too casual. A dress might seem like she was trying too hard. And all her clothes were either work professional or weekend sloppy, with nothing in between. She finally settled on black jeans and a soft burgundy sweater that her mother had sent from Lagos. It was comfortable but still put together, casual but not sloppy. She left her hair down again, added small gold earrings, a touch of makeup. In the mirror she looked like herself. Just herself. Not trying to be anything else. Good enough. At 6:50 her phone buzzed. "Car is downstairs." Ife grabbed her purse, checked 3 times that she had her keys and phone, and headed down to the street. A sleek black car waited at the curb, driver standing beside it. He opened the door for her with a respectful nod, and she slid into the leather interior, feeling like she was in a movie. The drive through Seoul's evening traffic should have calmed her nerves. Instead, they ratcheted higher with each mile. What was she doing? This was crazy. She barely knew Marco beyond their professional relationship. Everything she did know suggested this was a terrible idea. But she didn't ask the driver to turn around. Didn't text Marco to cancel. She just watched the city lights blur past and tried to breathe normally. Marco's building was in the heart of Gangnam, all glass and steel and money. The driver pulled into an underground garage, used a keycard to access a private elevator. He pressed the button for the penthouse, then stepped back. "Have a good evening, Mississippi." The elevator doors closed, and Ife was alone with her reflection and her racing heart. The ascent was smooth, silent. When the doors opened, they opened directly into Marco's apartment. And it was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Seoul's skyline, the city spread out like diamonds on black velvet. The apartment was modern but warm. Dark wood floors, cream-colored furniture, art on the walls that was probably worth more than she'd make in a lifetime. But it didn't feel cold or showy. Felt lived in. Real. Marco emerged from what she assumed was the kitchen, wearing jeans and a simple black sweater. She'd never seen him in anything but suits. The casual clothes made him look younger, more approachable. Human. "You came," he said, and there was relief in his voice. "You thought I wouldn't. I thought you might come to your senses." He smiled, moved closer. "I'm glad you didn't." He took her coat, hung it in a closet by the elevator. His hand brushed her arm, casual and intimate, and she felt that now familiar spark of electricity. "Something smells amazing," she said, because she needed to say something, needed to fill the silence. "De kalbi." Spicy stir-fried chicken. "I hope you like spicy food." "I'm Nigerian," she said with a laugh. "We invented spicy food." Challenge accepted. He led her toward the kitchen, and she saw the open plan layout. Kitchen flowing into dining area flowing into living room, all of it designed to showcase the view. Want something to drink? Wine. Whiskey. Soju. Wine would be nice. He poured her a glass of red wine that was probably expensive, handed it to her. Their fingers touched, lingered. Tour, he offered. She nodded, and he showed her around. The living room with its comfortable furniture and bookshelves. Actual books, not just for show. A home office that was all efficiency and technology. A guest bedroom, simply furnished. And finally his bedroom. Ife paused at the doorway, suddenly aware of the intimacy of standing outside his bedroom, of the enormous bed visible through the door, of the implications. I'm not trying to seduce you, Marco said quietly. I just wanted you to see my space. Where I live when I'm not being Don Marco. The bedroom was simpler than she expected. A large bed, yes, but also a reading chair by the window, more bookshelves, a photo on the nightstand. She stepped closer to look at the photo. A younger Marco with an older couple. His parents, probably. They died 5 years ago, Marco said from behind her. Car accident. That's when I took over the business. I'm sorry. So am I. He touched the frame gently. They built this empire, but they wanted me to be legitimate. They were trying to transition the business, make it legal. But when they died, I inherited all of it. The legitimate parts and the dark parts. And I was too young, too angry to let the dark parts go. It was the most personal thing he'd told her. Ife turned to face him. Do you regret it? Every day. And not at all. He smiled sadly. I'm good at what I do. I protect people who need protecting. Create jobs. I donate to charities. But I also hurt people who cross me. Break laws. I'm not a good man, Ife. I'm not asking you to be good. What are you asking for? She thought about it, sipped her wine. Honesty. That's all. Be honest with me about who you are, what you do. Don't lie to protect me. Don't hide things because you think I can't handle them. And if the truth scares you away, then it does. But at least I'll have made an informed choice. He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Honesty. I can do that. They returned to the kitchen, where Marco checked on the DeKalbi and started preparing side dishes. Kimchi, pickled radishes, rice. Ife perched on a bar stool at the island, watching him work. You really do cook, she observed. 88. I lived alone for a long time. Had to learn. He sliced vegetables with practiced ease. My mother insisted. Said no son of hers would be helpless in a kitchen. She sounds like my mother. Always worried I can't take care of myself. Can you? I've been living alone in a foreign country for 3 years. I think I'm managing. You're doing more than managing. You're thriving. He added the vegetables to the pan, the sizzle loud in the quiet apartment. That's what attracted me to you first. Not just your beauty, though you're beautiful. It was your competence, your confidence, the way you handled yourself in a world that wasn't built for you. Seoul isn't easy for people who look like me, Ife admitted. Some days are harder than others. Tell me. So she did. Told him about the stairs on the subway. The way shop owners would follow her around stores, assuming she was there to steal. The way men would either fetishize her or ignore her entirely. No middle ground. The loneliness of being foreign, different, other. Marco listened, really listened. His jaw clenching at some of her stories. I can't fix all of that, he said. But anyone at the company who makes you uncomfortable, who treats you with anything less than respect, tell me. I'll handle it. I can handle myself. I know you can. But you shouldn't have to. Not alone. The food was ready, and they ate at his dining table, the Seoul skyline their backdrop. The DeKalbi was delicious. Spicy and savory and perfect. They talked about everything and nothing. His childhood in Seoul, her childhood in Lagos. His favorite books, her favorite movies. Normal getting-to-know-you conversation. But underneath it all was the awareness. The tension. The knowledge that they were dancing around something bigger. After dinner, Marco poured them each a whiskey. Good whiskey, the kind that burned smooth, and they moved to the living room. Ife kicked off her shoes, curled up on one end of his enormous couch. He sat on the other end, respecting her space. "Can I ask you something?" Ife said. "Anything. When did you know that you wanted this?" She gestured between them. He swirled his whiskey, thinking. "The interview. The moment you walked in. You were terrified, I could see it in your eyes, but you held your head high anyway. Answered my questions with confidence you probably didn't feel. And when I asked why you wanted to work for me, you looked me dead in the eye and said, 'Because I'm good at what I do, and you need someone good.'" Faye remembered that moment. Remembered thinking she'd blown the interview with her boldness. "Most people are afraid of me," Marco continued. "They see Don Marco, the crime lord, the dangerous man. But you saw an employer. A job opportunity. Nothing more, nothing less. It was refreshing. Intoxicating. I was afraid of you," Ife admitted. "I just didn't let it show." "I know. That made it even better." He smiled. "So I hired you, told myself I'd keep it professional. And for about a week I managed. Then you brought me coffee in that blue mug. I'd mentioned once that I preferred it. And you remembered. Such a small thing, but it showed you paid attention. Cared about details. And I was lost. So you started photographing me." "So I started photographing me," he agreed, no shame in his voice now. "It was the only way I could have you without risking everything. Your job, your safety, your future. The photos were my compromise with myself. That's not healthy." "I know. But I'm not healthy when it comes to you. I thought burning the photos would change that. Didn't. It just removed the buffer." He set down his whiskey, turned to face her fully. "I still want you, Ife. More now than before. Because now I know you want me too." Her heart raced. "This is moving fast. We can slow down. We can take all the time you need. What if I don't want to slow down?" Something heated in his eyes. "Then we don't." Ife set down her own glass, moved closer on the couch. Not touching him yet, but close enough to feel his warmth. "What happens now?" "That depends on what you want." "I want." She paused, trying to find the right words. "I want to know all of you. Not just the boss. Not just Don Marco. The real you. The man who cooks dinner and reads books and misses his parents." "That man is dangerous too," Marco warned. "Maybe more dangerous than Don Marco. 'Cause he feels things. Wants things. Gets obsessive about things. I noticed." He laughed, the sound surprising and genuine. "You're not afraid of me at all anymore, are you?" "Oh, I'm terrified," Ife said honestly. "But not of you. Of this. Of how much I want it to work. Of how much power you have to hurt me." "I won't hurt you." "You can't promise that. People hurt each other all the time, even when they don't mean to." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull back. When she didn't, he cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone like he'd done on the balcony. "Then I promise to try not to. To value you. To protect you. To be honest with you, even when it's hard. That's all I can ask for." He leaned in, and this time the kiss was different. Not desperate like on the balcony, but slow. Exploratory. Learning each other. His lips were soft, his touch gentle but sure. Ife melted into it, into him, letting herself feel everything she'd been suppressing for months. When they broke apart, both breathing heavily, Marco rested his forehead against hers. "Stay," he whispered. "Just stay tonight. Sleep in my bed, let me hold you. Nothing more. I need to know you're real. That this is real." Faye should say no. Should keep boundaries. Should be smart and careful and rational. "Okay," she whispered back. "I'll stay." Ife woke to unfamiliar surroundings and a moment of panic before memory flooded back. Marco's apartment. His bed. She was alone in the enormous bed, wrapped in sheets that smelled like his cologne. Morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting the room in soft gold. She could hear sounds from elsewhere in the apartment: running water, the clink of dishes. She'd stayed. Had actually stayed the night. They'd talked for hours after that kiss, curled up together on his couch, then eventually moved to his bedroom. True to his word, nothing more than kissing had happened. He just held her, her back pressed against his chest, his arm wrapped around her waist. Protected. Warm. She'd slept better than she had in months. Now in the morning light reality crashed back. She'd spent the night at her boss's apartment. Had to go to work in a few hours. Had to maintain professional distance in front of their coworkers while knowing exactly how his lips tasted, how his arms felt around her, how he looked when he was vulnerable and unguarded. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Ji-won. "Girl, where are you? You never miss the morning coffee run." Fee's heart sank. She'd completely forgotten she was supposed to meet Ji-won for their usual pre-work coffee. She texted back. "Sorry, overslept. See you at the office." "You never oversleep. Are you sick?" "I'm fine. Just a rough night." Sure. See you soon." Ife set down her phone and found her clothes from last night folded neatly on a chair. Marco must have picked them up after she fell asleep. The thoughtfulness of it made her chest tight. She dressed quickly, ran fingers through her hair to tame it, tried to make herself presentable. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found Marco in the kitchen, cooking breakfast. He'd showered. His hair was damp, and he wore fresh clothes, black jeans and a white button-down. He looked up when she entered, and the smile that spread across his face was so genuine, so unguarded, that it took her breath away. "Good morning," he said, as if having her in his kitchen was the most natural thing in the world. "I hope you like Korean breakfast. I made jjigae." The stew smelled amazing, and Ife's stomach reminded her she was hungry. "You didn't have to. I wanted to." He ladled stew into bowls, set them on the counter. "Come eat." They ate in comfortable silence, the morning sun painting everything gold. Felt domestic, normal, like they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. "I should get home," Ife said finally. "I need to change for work. And we should arrive separately." "I know." Marco's expression was resigned but understanding. "My driver will take you home." "But Ife." "Yes. Last night was." He paused, searching for words. "Perfect. Thank you for staying. Thank you for asking me to." He walked her to the elevator, and in the privacy of the hallway, pulled her close for one more kiss. This one was different, tinged with longing, with goodbye, with the knowledge that for the next 8 hours, they'd have to pretend this didn't exist. "Tonight?" he asked against her lips. "I can't. I have plans with Ji-won. Tomorrow. Maybe. I'll text you." He smiled. "Trying to make me work for it. Trying to make sure we don't lose ourselves in this. We both have lives outside of each other." "Wise," he acknowledged. "Frustrating but wise." The elevator arrived, and Ife stepped inside. As the doors closed, she saw him watching her, hands in his pockets, looking like a man who'd found something precious and was terrified of losing it. The ride home felt surreal. Ife watched Seoul wake up through the car windows. Vendors opening shops, students heading to school, office workers rushing to the subway. Normal life, continuing as if her entire world hadn't shifted on its axis. At her apartment, she showered and changed quickly, choosing a professional gray dress and pulling her hair back into her usual bun. In the mirror, she looked like herself again. Assistant Ife. Not the woman who'd spent the night in her boss's arms. She could do this. Could maintain the separation between work and personal. It would be fine. The office was buzzing when she arrived. A few minutes later than usual. Ji-won pounced immediately. "Okay, spill. Where were you really?" "I told you I overslept. In yesterday's clothes." Ji-won pointed at Ife's purse, where a corner of her burgundy sweater was visible. "Girl, that's the same sweater you wore yesterday." "I know because I complimented it." Ife's stomach dropped. She'd been so careful about her appearance. She'd forgotten about the extra clothes in her purse. I had coffee spilled on me. I had to change. Ji-won's eyes narrowed. You're lying. You never lie. Which means this is big. I spent the night somewhere I shouldn't have big. Ji-won. Is he married? Please tell me he's not married. He's not married. Then why the secrecy? Ji-won's expression softened. Ife, you can tell me. I'm your friend. Fi wanted to confess everything, get advice, have someone to talk to about this insane situation. But she couldn't. Couldn't risk Ji-won's job, couldn't risk her own, couldn't risk Marco. It's complicated, she said finally. And private. I promise, I'm not doing anything dangerous or stupid. Are you sure? Because this sneaking around thing seems pretty stupid. I'm sure. Just trust me. Please. Ji-won studied her face, then sighed. Fine. But if you need help, if anything goes wrong, you tell me. Deal. Deal. Marco's office door was closed when Ife got to her desk. But she needed time to compose herself, to remember how to be professional around him. At 9 a.m. sharp, her computer chimed with an email. From Marco, formal and businesslike. Miss Obiora, please bring the monthly financial reports to my office at 9:30. We need to review them before the investor call at 10. She responded just as formally. Yes, Mr. Kim. I'll have them ready. At 9:30, she knocked on his door, reports in hand, professional mask firmly in place. Come in. He sat behind his desk, every inch the powerful executive. But when their eyes met, for just a fraction of a second, she saw the man from this morning. The one who'd cooked her breakfast and kissed her goodbye. Then the moment passed, and he was Mr. Kim again. The financial reports, she said, placing them on his desk. Thank you. He opened the folder, scanned the first page. Walk me through the discrepancies in the third quarter. They worked through the reports together. His questions sharp and focused, her answers clear and professional. To anyone watching, they were just doing their jobs. But under the desk, hidden from view, his foot touched hers. Just lightly. Just for a second. A secret connection. Effie's breath hitched, but she kept talking, kept explaining the numbers. His foot stayed there, a warm pressure against hers, and she felt the tension building, the awareness, the electricity that never quite left when they were near each other. That will be all, he said finally, closing the folder. Excellent work as always, Miss Obiora. Thank you, Mr. Kim. She turned to leave, and his voice stopped her. Oh, and Miss Obiora. She looked back. Yes. I got your email about rescheduling tomorrow's department meeting. That works for my schedule. She hadn't sent any email about rescheduling. Which meant, I'll make sure everyone is notified, she said carefully. Thank you. And please block out tomorrow evening on my calendar. I have a dinner meeting that will run late. A dinner meeting. Tomorrow evening. An invitation disguised as work. Of course, sir. I'll update your calendar. Back at her desk, she found the email he was referring to. One he'd sent to himself from her address, asking to reschedule. Clever. Creating a paper trail of normal correspondence that would explain their communication. Her phone buzzed. A text from Pizza Place. Tomorrow. 7 p.m. I'm cooking again. Or we can go out if you prefer. Choice. She smiled despite herself, typed back. Cooking sounds perfect. But I'm choosing the menu this time. Ill. What do you want? Surprise me. Dangerous words, Miss Obiora. I thought we established I'm not afraid of you. No, you're not. That's what makes you perfect. Ife deleted the conversation immediately. Paranoia making her careful. This was their life now. Secret messages. Hidden touches. Stolen moments. The day passed in a blur of work. Meetings and phone calls and emails and the thousand small tasks that made up her job. But underneath it all was the awareness. Every time Marco walked past her desk, every time she heard his voice on a phone call, every time someone mentioned his name, she felt it. Pull. The connection. The dangerous, thrilling, terrifying thing growing between them. At lunch, she escaped to her usual spot at the coffee shop. Her phone buzzed with another text. "Can you see me?" She looked up at Marco Industries, scanning the windows. On the 23rd floor, in his office window, she could just make out a figure. Marco watching her like he always had. But this time she was watching back. She raised her coffee cup in a small salute. Even from this distance, she could see him smile. "This isn't over," she typed. "This watching thing. You know that, right?" "No. But now it goes both ways. That's progress. Is it? Or is it just mutual obsession? Can't it be both?" She laughed out loud, earning curious looks from nearby tables. "You're impossible. And you're extraordinary. Get back to work, Miss Obiora. Have meetings." The afternoon brought the Investa call, which Ife listened to from her desk, taking notes. Marco was brilliant on the call. Confident, persuasive, commanding. He made million-dollar deals sound simple, made risky investments sound like sure things. This was his world, and he ruled it absolutely. But she'd seen the other side of him now. The man who cooked breakfast and read books and held her like she was something precious. The man behind Don Marco. And somehow, knowing both versions made her want him more. At 6 p.m., the office began to empty. Jiwon stopped by Ife's desk on her way out. "You're coming to dinner Friday, right? My cousin's restaurant. You promised." "I'll be there," Ife assured. "Wouldn't miss it." "Good. And bring your mystery man if you want. I promise I won't interrogate him." "There's no mystery man." "Sure." Jiwon grinned. "See you tomorrow, Your Majesty." By 7 p.m. the office was mostly empty. Ife finished her last task, shut down her computer, gathered her things. Marco's office light was still on, and she knew he was waiting. Waiting for everyone else to leave so they could have a moment alone. She knocked on his door. "Mr. Kim, I'm heading out. Do you need anything before I go?" "Come in." "Close the door." She did, and the moment the door clicked shut, the professional distance evaporated. He stood, moved around the desk, pulled her into his arms. "I've been dying to do this all day," he murmured against her hair. Ife melted into him, let herself feel the safety of his embrace. "This is hard. Pretending." "I know. But you were right. We have to be careful." She pulled back enough to look up at him. "Marco, what are we doing? Really? Is this just physical? Or is it something more?" His expression grew serious. "You're asking if I'm just obsessed, or if I actually care about you. I guess I am." He cupped her face in both hands, made her meet his eyes. "Ife, I've been obsessed with you for months. But last night, talking to you, holding you, waking up knowing you were in my home, that was different. That was caring. That was wanting to know your thoughts, your dreams, your fears. That was wanting to protect you not because you're mine, but because you matter. So what does that make us?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But I want to find out. If you'll let me." Ife thought about all the reasons she should say no. The danger, the impropriety, the risk to her career. But she also thought about how she felt when she was with him. Valued. Life. "One condition," she said. "Name it. If this gets too dangerous, if keeping me in your life puts me in real danger, you have to tell me. You have to let me make the choice about whether to stay or go." He looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded. "I can agree to that. As long as you promise to really listen when I explain the risks. Not to downplay them or be reckless. Deal." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Don't be late." "I won't." She smiled up at him. "And Marco, thank you for breakfast." "Get used to it," he said. "I plan on making you a lot of breakfasts." The promise in those words made her heart race. This was happening. Really happening. Despite all the reasons it shouldn't. As she rode the elevator down, as she walked to the subway, as she made her way home through Seoul's evening crowds, Ife felt different. Changed. Like she'd crossed a threshold she couldn't uncross. Monday morning everything had changed, and she had no idea where it would lead. But for the first time in a long time she was excited to find out. And, for now, Ife and Marco's story continues as they navigate the dangerous waters of their secret relationship, balancing professional distance with growing intimacy, facing threats from Marco's enemies, and discovering whether their connection can survive in the harsh light of reality. But for tonight they have each other. And for now that's enough. Do well to like, drop a comment and subscribe to K-Whisper.